Israel from Texas. With AEW Fight Forever coming out this week with Owen Hart a part of the roster, and next year marking 25 years since his death, I've been thinking a lot about it. His death is still one of the saddest and most senseless things to ever happen. The whole situation did not need to go down the way it did. I remember that Owen was given an ultimatum, either do the unnecessary stunt or get fired. And Owen felt he had no choice. And that right there really got me questioning. Why didn't Owen just go to WCW or threaten Vince that he would walk out and go to WCW in order to get out of doing the stunt? This was 1999. WCW was hiring guys like the Sandman of all people. I don't see what was stopping Owen from going. Did Brett get in his ear and warn him not to come anywhere near WCW? Did Owen get spooked with how they were treating Brett and his other family members there? Or was WCW just not interested? It still bothers me too. The whole thing was just senseless. The reason Owen didn't just leave and go to WCW is because of this little thing called a contract. It's not that simple to think, well, why didn't he just pick up and leave and go? He had a contract. When Owen initially wanted to leave after what happened to Brett in Montreal, they wouldn't let him out of his deal. Or they would have taken him to court for breach. And he didn't want that. In this case, the day he died, he left the building when they were looking for him to rehearse the stunt. He had already done the stunt once before. It was on an episode of Sunday Night Heat. They had the blue blazer descending from the ceiling. This happened once before. And it went fine. Actually, it didn't go fine. I mean, it went fine as far as, he wasn't hurt or killed. But I guess there were issues with how slowly it took for him to maybe unhook himself. And that probably played a role in why they wanted to do the stunt differently this time. But the problem was also that Owen was afraid of heights. And he just didn't like being all the way up there, which I could totally understand. So he did not want to rappel from the ceiling any more than he had to. He didn't have any interest in going up there and rehearsing that day. So he left the building. He was having lunch with somebody, who I think the guy who picked him up that day at the airport, who was just, I think, a fan. It was like a local fan that maybe some of the wrestlers knew about. And Owen called on him to pick him up. So they were having lunch together. And Owen's like, hey, dude, let's get out of here. They can't find me, right? I can't do the stunt. So they left. And that's when Owen later on, they're looking for him. He gets a call on his phone from Vince McMahon. And Vince tells him, either you get back to the arena in 15 minutes or you no longer work for WWE. So he went back for the rehearsal. He didn't want to lose his job. I can't get in the man's head and say why, but he had worked there for many, many years. He had friends there. I'm sure he was making a good living there. I think his wife, even after he died, said that they had just bought their dream home. So again, I don't know what his financial situation was. Could the way Eric Bischoff used Brett and Davey and Anvil had scared him off from wanting to go to WCW? It's certainly possible. Owen did an interview. I couldn't remember who it was with, but he did an interview before WrestleMania 14. He was doing an interview to promote WrestleMania. So this was in March of 98, I guess it would have been. And in this interview, he was asked about his decision to stay after Montreal. And he said, WCW has so much talent, it's very easy for people to get lost in the shuffle there. And he said that he didn't really have much of a choice in staying anyway because he was under contract. And unless the company did something to breach that contract, he couldn't go anywhere. So if Vince wanted him to do the stunt and threatened to fire him, yeah, I mean, he couldn't say, fire me. Now he's looking at possible legal problems if they want to fuck with him and stop him from going somewhere else. They could claim he's in breach of his contract. They could sue him. There's any number of ways they could have messed with him and his money. And he's got a family to support. And it's easy to say, well, they wouldn't have. Owen had to know they wouldn't have done that to him, right? Because he was there for so long and he was so well liked. Yeah, well, nobody thought that Brett was going to get fucked over the way that he was. 14 years in the company, and look what they did in Montreal. Right? So who's to say? You can't just assume, oh, that'll never happen to me. You can't assume that. It's very easy to say, how come he didn't just do this, or how come he just didn't do that? No one wants to lose their job or have to deal with lawyers and lawsuits. This is 100% on the company for cutting corners that night when it came to the rigging for the stunt, even if Owen quick released himself or made some kind of mistake on his part when he was up on that catwalk. Read the details of everything leading up to it. The harness they used, all of it. He should not have been put in that position in the first place. There's a reason why they had other riggers who looked at this stunt and said, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that. That's crazy, what you're talking about doing. And then he died. This is why, the people who piss, bitch, and moan about Martha not wanting to work with WWE and now she's working with AEW. Oh my God, she's working with the enemy. All you people can go pull your lip over your head and swallow. It was their negligence that killed her husband. And if you can't understand that and why she wouldn't want to work with these people again and put money in their pocket, then you have some serious defect in your thinking on this. Her issue was never with pro wrestling. Her issue was with Vince McMahon and his company.